Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. Again, welcome to our June edition of our cybersecurity awareness training program. We do these on a monthly basis. While some of the content is similar, most of it does change simply because the bad guys change their tactics and whatnot. A little bit of housekeeping. Everyone's mic is muted. If you have a question throughout the presentation, feel free to drop that question in the chat. I will try to keep an eye on that as we go through the presentation here. If I don't catch it while I am doing the presentation, I will definitely circle back and go through that at the end of the presentation during the Q&A session. So again, welcome. My name is Brian. I am the Chief Technology Officer here at PCA Technology Group. Been with the company for quite a bit of time now, coming up on 16 years. And my specialty and forte is actually cybersecurity. In a previous position before I joined PCA, I was also doing some security work for Department of Defense contractors and whatnot. We were a civilian contractor, but we were dealing with a lot of Department of Defense entities. So I know a little bit about cybersecurity. I've been in the security side of things since before the internet, back in the bulletin board days. If anybody is old enough to remember those days, I might be showing my age here a little bit, but it's one of those things where I was always interested in security, and started out as a hacker back in the days of the bulletin board days, and just kind of stuck with it and ended up making a career out of it. So I am a certified ethical hacker, and basically all that means is everything that I'm talking about here I do know and have the ability to actually do. I obviously need to know about what the bad guys are doing in order to protect clients, and talk intelligently about some of the tactics that these guys are using. So guys or gals, actually. So with further ado, let's move on here. So why are we worried about cybersecurity? Well, if you are in touch, whether it's social media, the physical news, or whatever, you're probably noticing many things. You may even been victim to some of this, of cybersecurity breaches, cybersecurity thefts, ransomwares, things of that nature, and it just is becoming widespread. No one is safe from it, no matter how big, how small you think your company or organization is. Nobody is safe from potentially falling into this realm. It's not like the bad guys are just physically targeting big companies. While they are definitely worthwhile to get if they can, doesn't mean the small ones aren't safe either. So just be aware of that. And you can see by the statistics here, last year, obviously there was a 38% increase over 2021. What's fueling that? Sometimes it's smaller. It used to be well-known hacker gangs or hacker entities that would be doing a lot of these hacks. Well, now they're individuals that are doing these things. Skill sets are becoming more. Sometimes artificial intelligence is being used for this too. So, and again, they're not just targeting big companies; they're targeting everybody at this point. So just be aware of that. The other thing too, you might see here on this screen is a lot of logos, company logos. These are just some of the well-known big ones that have been breached. It's not all of them, but some of the well-known companies that have been breached just this year. Big companies on there, and we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of them. One to keep in mind, or a couple to keep in mind that I do want to focus on. If you are using a Barracuda email filtering appliance, a physical appliance, and if you are not aware, there's a major security risk with those devices, most of those devices. So you need to make sure and contact Barracuda and see if your physical device, if you have one of those, that you will need to get that replaced. And they will send you an updated unit that doesn't have that vulnerability in it. Otherwise, bad actors could potentially get into that device and navigate their way into your internal infrastructure very, very easily. So you want to make sure that that device, if you do have one of those on premise, that you need it. It doesn't affect the hosted version. Excuse me. So if you're using the hosted version of that product line, it does not affect that. It's only the physical email appliance. If you're one of our customers and had one of those by chance, we've already reached out and contacted you. If you're just joining us for the webinar here and you are not one of our customers and you have one of those, just make sure that you reach out to Barracuda and find out if your device is on that list or not. So the other thing too is ChatGPT. I kind of mentioned and alluded to that the bad guys are using ChatGPT. If you haven't heard about ChatGPT, that is an an AI engine that is basically available not only for a paid subscription, but available for public usage as well too. There are some limitations on the public side versus the paid side. However, without getting too deep into that, there's a couple of points I want to mention about that. One is not only are they used by the bad actors, they're also targets for the bad actors. What they ended up doing is breaching about, I think they stole about 100,000 accounts roughly from ChatGPT. Just keep that in mind that again, nobody is safe. The other thing I want to make sure of, and whether you're using that AI engine or some of the other ones out there, I know Microsoft has their Bing, Google has theirs too. But the one thing I want to make sure that the audience is aware of is while AI is helpful, much like anything else that is done on the internet, keep in mind that any information you provide ChatGPT or ask for, that information could also be regurgitated by that AI engine and shared with the public. I say that only because some people may have heard there was a breach from Samsung. One of those breaches actually ended up because an internal employee actually fed some code to ChatGPT to see if that code was secure, and it wasn't. They ended up, finding out that the code wasn't secure, and then somebody else ended up asking ChatGPT in a roundabout way, to provide insecure code, and it showed an example of it, and they realized, oh wait, this is a Samsung thing, and Samsung did not patch it. And this bad actor ended up reusing that. So it was fed the information, and then not long after was regurgitated to anybody who asked the right question. So just keep in mind that anything you ask for or give access to ChatGPT to, it could potentially and probably will release that to the public. So just be aware of that. If you have any, trade things or anything like that, you should be very candid as to how you're utilizing ChatGPT. Now there are, some ways to do that. If you have a paid subscription, it's supposed to sandbox you, which basically means that it's not supposed to share that. But again, like anything else out there, even though your social media accounts are locked down to, secure your information behind those, there's ways of getting around that very easily. So there's always a way to get to the information if it's out on the internet. Just be aware of that. So moving on, the other thing to keep in mind is if a bad actor does get access to your systems, it's not like they always send up flares or send out messages saying, hey, I got you. Sometimes they're in there for up to 7 months. The reason for that is a couple things. One, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not necessarily that these people are physically targeting your company. Now, that is the case sometimes. However, a lot of times what it is they're just sending out, they're sending out all kinds of things to try to trap people. They're just basically sending it out to a whole group of different people, not necessarily at the same company. And whoever happens to open that email or fall for that trap, then they figure out, okay, who fell for this? What kind of company is it? What kind of data do they have? Is there anything valuable here that I could potentially steal or extort money for? Sometimes they actually lock your data too, which is ransomware. So what they do is they encrypt your data to the point where you can't use it internally. And then they reach out to you and say, hey, I've encrypted your data. If you want your data back, you're going to have to pay me X amount of crypto coin, whatever the flavor of the month is. Usually it's Bitcoin. However, that's not necessarily always secure either. However, they use that to hide behind, and then unless you have a good backup to go back to, you're pretty much at the mercy of, okay, do I start over from scratch because I can't access my data? Do I pay these criminals, which isn't always the best option? Or do I have a good backup that I can go back to and recover prior to hopefully these bad actors being in my system? So just keep that in mind. That's what they're in there. The other thing too is that 60% of the businesses that do get breached usually go out of business within 6 months after that attack. It's pretty detrimental, not only from a financial standpoint, but a reputation standpoint and things like that. So it's one of those situations. As we go through the presentation here, someone asked, how do small businesses protect themselves from hackers? The one thing I will say is, as we go through here, we'll talk a little bit about some of the tactics, which also and how to protect yourself from those. So we'll touch base on that very quickly here. So who's responsible? So basically what I mean by this is who's responsible for cybersecurity. The idea is that a lot of folks think that, well, it's not my company, or hey, it's my company, but I hire an IT company for this, or I outsource my IT or whatever. It's the owners, the leaders. A lot of people think that it's not my responsibility. Well, lo and behold, it's actually everybody's responsibility. It's not only the owners, but it's the employees, it's everyone. And the reason why that is because the bad actors are really targeting the end users to allow them to get in to these systems. So we like to call that the human firewall. Realistically, it's the last layer of defense before the bad guy kind of probably gets in. And you need to be aware, which we will discuss as this presentation goes on here, that it will be one of those, it'll be kind of obvious, on what some of these bad actors are doing and why they're doing it and why they're going after the end users. I like to think of it and allude to it as, if you have an alarm system on your home, it's only as good as you arming and disarming that system. So, if you're at home during the day and you have your alarm system unarmed, that doesn't necessarily protect you from someone coming into your house forcefully during the daytime because the alarm is actually disabled. So it's much like that, where we can put multiple layers of defense in place that will stop the bad guys from potentially coming in. However, if someone on the inside opens a malicious email and clicks on one of those malicious links, you're basically allowing that bad guy in by doing that behavior. So you're kind of getting around or skirting the whole idea. And that's exactly what the bad guys do. The bad guys are going after the end users because it's much easier to get through by doing that than it is to try to beat the technology in front of that. So what is it? It's basically social engineering. And I'm going to tell you, this is extremely easy to manipulate people, to get them to do things that you don't want to do. You may not even realize it's happening. And it's basically manipulating people's tendency to trust, or manipulating them in such a way that they don't question things. If I want to get you to click on something, and I think you're a user that is pretty savvy and won't normally do that. How could I potentially get you to do that? Well, I can send you to a website, and then start throwing up all kinds of adult-oriented or questionable content-oriented pop-ups, and just keep rapid firing them on your screen. You're going to start panicking and start clicking all over the place. And in the midst of that, I'm going to throw one of those malicious links in there. You're going to click on that. And in the meantime, you're trying to close down all these other windows too, because you're embarrassed. You don't know what's going on. And I basically got you. I manipulated you. Another common tactic nowadays, and this is a fairly common tactic, so you got to be aware of this too. That the bad guys are starting, because this is so profitable for them, they're starting to invest some monetary money in it, where they are sending out electronic devices to people blindly. you didn't order them, but all of a sudden you've got a free iPad show up at your business, or you have a free smartwatch show up at your business, or you have a free access point that shows up at your business. You never ordered it. You don't know where necessarily it came from. It may look like it came from a company or something, but you never ordered it. And there might be a note in here: congratulations, you won a free iPod for attending a webinar that you thought you may have attended or something. And within that iPad or smartwatch may be some malware or backdoor information that of course the first thing you're going to do is connect it to your wireless network. Now you just let the bad guys in your network because you connected that device, and didn't question it. So you've got to be a little vigilant, because the bad guys are definitely trying to pull out all the stops they can to try to breach those things. So again, so what are some of the common tactics, attack methods? I will spend a lot of time talking about email, because phishing emails and things like that are probably account for about 90 to 95% of the methods used by the bad guys to try to get in by using social engineering that way. So we'll spend a lot of time with that. Social media can be used for reconnaissance. It also can be used to get a lot of information, like who works at a company. And I'm not just talking your Facebooks, your Instagrams, it also goes to LinkedIn too. So, I can go to a company's LinkedIn page and pretty much find out everybody that works there. Sometimes I can figure out as well as what their positions are, because, the followers things, you can just kind of go right down through the chain and figure out if I am targeting somebody, or once I get in and figure out who the company is, I can, maybe manipulate other users outside of that by pretending to be somebody else. So you've got to be aware of that. So, everybody unfortunately posts their lives on social media and shares way too much information. But that's another topic of discussion. But just be aware that social media is a plethora for the bad guys of information. So what are the trends? We kind of already alluded to this. So a lot of times sometimes they'll do ransomware. Extortion is when they steal your data and threaten to either sell it or post it on the dark web unless you pay them some money. Sometimes they do both. Sometimes they do ransomware and threaten to sell it. So they get you kind of on both sides of that. I already mentioned that, AI is assisting some of these bad actors. So it's not like the days where, you might get this bogus email from a Nigerian king saying he wants to share his wealth with you because you just happen to be the lucky recipient of that. And it was bad English and things like that, where you might be able to pick up on that kind of thing. Now the bad actors are using AI, which are crafting extremely, extremely convincing emails that could potentially trick people. So again, you have to be vigilant on what you're opening, what you're responding to, how you're doing things, and things like that. Who's behind it? Sometimes it's criminal groups. A lot of third world nations now are physically hiring people right out of school, and they believe that they are working for legitimate companies, when in fact they're actually hired to hack other nations or other companies, because this business model is extremely profitable for them, and they don't even realize they're doing illegal activity sometimes. So you've definitely, it's just what it is, unfortunately. So as mentioned, the attack vectors, most of it's done over the internet or cloud. Very rarely is it a physical on-site. While that is a potential, you need to make sure that you're aware of that. Mobile devices, that's a big thing now. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but mobile devices can also be used as a potential attack vector. And we'll touch base on that coming up here. So with that in mind, obviously let's start at the basics here. So web surfing, if you're doing any type of web surfing from your work PC, you want to make sure you try to keep that to business use only. By doing that, it will limit your potential of stumbling upon a potential malicious website, or clicking on things that necessarily you may or may not be aware that it is malicious or not. So the other part is, obviously, social media is potentially riddled with a lot of bad stuff too. So if you're not careful, you could stumble upon something there. If you don't need to be on social media, and I know some companies do use that for marketing purposes. However, if you don't need to be on that, make sure you stay off of that on work computers. Wait till you get home to check your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever the flavor of choice is. That way, you're not potentially putting yourself and the company at risk of falling for potential pitfalls there. Keep your browsers updated. That's these browsers are constantly being updated, sometimes weekly, daily. That's your Chrome, your Firefoxes, your Safaris, if you're a Mac user, or your Edges, if you're a Windows user. If you're getting a notification, that, hey, there's a browser update, make sure you're applying that in a timely manner. Because if you do happen to stumble upon a malicious website that may be looking for insecurities in your browser, you are pretty much letting the guy in the window without even realizing it, just by simply visiting that site. They could potentially utilize that exploit or whatever that's in there. Most browsers are pretty good about keeping you informed. Most of them will update when you first start them. However, if you're one of those users that like to leave your computers running and you just simply close it, usually at some point that browser will tell you, hey, there's an update. A message either in the top navigation bar or something somewhere around there. It really depends on the browser. However, it's one of those situations where if you see that message, take the time, make sure you're updated and patched. That way you're securing yourself from potential issues with that. So the other thing too is the bad guys are doing is they're using something called it's basically called browser in the browser attack, and what it's leveraging a few things. First of all, it's leveraging the fact that normal users hate remembering passwords, they hate remembering logins, and things like that, and they don't want to have multiple logins for multiple different sites. So what they're doing here is they're preying on that negative experience that most users have with trying to do that. So they're here in this case, they're using trying to leverage a fake SSO, which stands for single sign-on. They're using fake Windows with that's requesting that information. And basically what it is here is this the single sign-on is a good thing. But the problem is you got to make sure that the whatever's asking for that is valid. So what it does, it allows you to use one of your existing logins on another website if it uses that technology. So in this case, they're visiting Canva, and Canva is saying, hey, do you want to use your Apple ID account? Do you want to use your Google account? Do you want to use your your Facebook account? Or it could be your Instagram, your Steam, or something like that. It's using an existing account that you already have that will allow you to use those login credentials on this specific site, because it's allowing you to hook those two together. In normal circumstances, it's not a problem. However, the bad guys have realized that it's very easy to trick people into this, because it's used pretty heavily. And if you stumble upon a malicious site or a questionable site that may be a fake site set up just to steal credentials, you could fall for this, because it is extremely difficult to detect visually. And I'll show you an example here. So here's an example. So on the right hand side here, this one here is the real example of using this. In this case, they're trying to use their Facebook login. So this is asking to use your Facebook login. You can see here, this is the real one. And on the left hand side here, this is the phishing one. Basically, the screens themselves look exactly the same. Even if you click the link here, or the little pad icon, if you're kind of a tech savvy person, you can go up here and try to at least check to see if it's the right SSL cert. You click that one and you click this one, that is also going to match. If you look at this URL, and if you could see the whole thing, it also matches this one over here. So visually, there is absolutely no way you can tell the difference besides the fact that we have a marked real and phishing. If that was taken away, there is no visual way that you would be able to tell the real version of this from the fake version of this. So what happens? So basically on the fake version, what's going to happen is whatever website you're trying to log into, this is going to ask you for your, in this case, it's going to ask you for your Facebook login. You're going to put that in there. You're going to put your Facebook password in there. You're going to hit login. It's going to allow you to log into that site using those credentials. But on the fake version, it's also sending that information to the bad guys. So it's basically capturing it, recording it, and emailing it to the bad guys. So now in effectiveness, you just basically gave away, in this case, your Facebook account and login information. So here's another example of it. This is an example of a Google version of it. So now you're using your Google account. Again, on the right-hand side here is the real version, and on the left-hand side is the phishing version. If you look at this and look at this, now there is a slight difference visually in the phishing one. It's that this one does have that create an account one. However, that wouldn't raise a red flag for me, only because if I'd hover over that, it does point to Google just like it would, normally. So it could have just been a version difference, but visually, these are both almost identical. Again, if you click the padlock up here, it will show that it's a Google cert. On this one, it'll also show it's a Google cert. So that won't work. If you look at the URLs, they're completely out, and compare the two, again, it would be exactly the same on both. So again, if you put your Google information in on the phishing one, it's going to allow you into that website. However, it's going to email that information out to the bad guys. So what do we do, and how do you stop yourself, or how do you protect it from this? Well, because of the way the bad guys are displaying this fake version of this, there is one way that you can tell whether you've got the real version or whether you've got the fake version, if you choose to go down this path and use this. So in this case, so what you can do is, if you end up on a site that you want to try to use one of your existing logins on, and it's giving you the option to use that, and this window pops up and you're concerned, is it real or is it fake? Because I remember the presentation, it said it's real easy to fall for and you can't tell. Here's how you tell. So what I want you to do is, I want you to grab the top bar here on whatever window's popping up, and I want you to try to drag it outside of your browser. So this is going to pop up probably in the middle of the screen of your existing browser window, whatever that browser is. What I want you to do is to grab the top bar and try to drag this window completely outside of the browser. If it allows you to break outside of the browser, and it more than likely will drop to your desktop, if that window drops outside of the browser, that is the real version. If you try to do that with the fake one, what's going to happen is your cursor is going to go to the edge of the browser window and it's going to stop. It's not going to let you break outside of that browser window with that particular window, with the fake one. So that's how you can tell the difference right now between the real one and the phishing one. And it's mainly because of what the bad guys are using to display this fake one. And it won't allow them to break out of that window. So that is the only way you can tell currently the difference between the real one and the fake one. So we will get to the password questions. Someone asked, is there a preferred browser, one that's safer than the others? Not necessarily. As long as you're using something current, I would say whatever your browser of choice is. Most of them actually are based off of Chrome now anyways, or Firefox. So it's one of those two things. Edge is based off of the same backend engine that Chrome is based off of. It's just catered towards Microsoft a little bit. So they're pretty much identical. And Firefox and some of the other ones are basically, like a Mozilla backend. So that's something to be aware of, that, as long as it's a current browser, I would say there's not one that's necessarily safer than the other. But that's a good question. And we'll touch on, someone asked, are password keepers safe? If so, which ones? We'll touch on that. It's a great topic as well too. That'll be later in the presentation here. Good question. How can you tell on the mobile? Well, that's welcome to the mobile world. Unfortunately, there isn't a very easy way to do things on the mobile. Hence the reason why I do not surf on my mobile device, because there's a lot of complications with that. There's a lot of things you can't necessarily see. I know, talking and saying that in today's day and age with the generation that's out there that has nothing but mobile devices, it's not a good answer. But unfortunately, you're at the mercy of that. It's unfortunate, but it's not an easy way to test it. I would say if you're doing it from a mobile device, I would, in the case of this one here, I would go back here where it says sign in, continue another way. I would use a different login. I would not link in with any of these because you can't tell whether you're necessarily getting the right thing or not. In this case, if you hit that, it'll allow you to log in with probably your email address, and you'll have a separate login for that site. That would be my recommendation. So that leads us on to email. So email does kind of tie in with some of the web surfing things, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So again, much like the web surfing, don't utilize your work email for personal usage. Why is that? Well, because a lot of the tactics that the bad guys try to leverage is really easy to detect if you follow that simple rule. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean by that. You can, if you don't use, and right now is not a good time because it's not during the holidays, but this tends to happen a lot over the holidays. A lot of people will use their work emails for Christmas shopping or their coupon codes or their Black Friday deals and things like that, and making purchases and whatnot during holiday times. That what ends up happening is the bad guys send a lot of fake purchase notices from PayPal, eBay, Amazon. They fake shipping notices from FedEx, DHL, UPS, the post office. They do this all the time. And if you're not doing that type of behavior in your work email, you won't even need to question whether it's real or not. You can just see one of those come into your work email and be like, okay, I don't buy anything from Amazon, delete it. You don't even need to investigate it further than that. You can visually see that it's not gonna be valid, and that's what you want. That's exactly what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to interact with that bad email as least possible as you can, and by visually seeing that, oh, this is UPS, this is FedEx, this is Amazon, eBay. I don't do any of that in my work email. Gone. If you are doing that, now you have to play the decipher game. Okay, is it something I ordered? Is it something that was recalled? Is it something that I don't know what it is? And now I got to open the email. And when I do that, I have to interact with something potentially. I could, interact with it in a way that could, create a security issue. So again, keep all that stuff for when you get home on your personal email. It is very easy to determine the difference. On the flip side of that, obviously, don't access your personal email from your work computer. Again, it's almost like you're sharing the same email address because you're opening that up on a work device. If you happen to click on something in your personal email, like if you do it via the web, and you're basically opening that up on your work computer, that is potentially infecting not only your work computer, but also the network that you're connected to behind that. So it's one of those things where, again, keep that stuff for when you're outside of the office, off of work resources. And this will stop probably, I would say, 70 to 75% of the potential things that you could fall for. And we'll talk about some of the other ones. So the other idea is that if you're a Microsoft user and you're using Microsoft Outlook, what I would recommend is turning off your preview pane, or reading pane, they call it now. It used to be called the preview pane. And that's this extra window over here that basically shows you the content of the email that's highlighted at the top of your inbox. So what this is effectively doing is as each email comes through here, it is showing you the contents of that email without you physically having to open it. So this is actually opening it for you. So you can view it over here. That's a problem. Like I said, you want to interact with potential malicious emails as least as humanly possible. So in this case, you would be opening, if I'd send you three malicious emails that have something in them, whether it's a hidden image or a tracking code or something like that. And basically that tells me that, it's hitting a website that I'm watching, and it'll tell me if I have a good email address or not, that it was delivered, it was opened. Oh, hey, I got got somebody that's might be taking a bait here. I'm going to send them another email now. So it's basically getting you on a list of continued emails. And this is opening all three of those as they hit your inbox because you have this window open. So what you want to do is turn that off. And to do that, you go up to the View tab here, which is already selected. You'll see here in the menu bar, it says Reading Pane. If you hit that drop-down arrow there, it will say right bottom and off, I believe. Just select the off thing, and what will happen, this will actually, this preview window will actually go away, and all these messages will now go to the end of the section here. Now you will have to double click on those emails to physically see what's inside of them. And that's exactly what you want. You want to be the one interacting with your emails, not some automated piece of software. Because again, that email comes in, you see it from Amazon, and hey, I remember I don't do that because Brian told me or suggested not to do that. So I can just delete that because I don't do that. I follow that advice. Very easy. You don't even have to open it up. Just delete it. Simple as that. So again, you will stop probably 70 to 75% of those issues by simply getting rid of not using your email for personal usage, gym memberships, any of that stuff, coupon codes, shopping, newsletters. Unless it's work oriented, don't do it. Simple as that. So what is a phishing email? We talked a lot about phishing emails. Here's an example of a phishing email. And this is a very simplistic phishing email. This is one that's usually sent out to multiple people, and just waiting for someone to take the bait. So I like to allude to this as walking up, say you're walking in the woods or somewhere, and you come upon a body of water, whether it's a pond or a small lake, whatever it is, and you don't know, is there something living in there or not? That's basically what a phishing email is in this aspect. So maybe you have a handful of crumbs or breadcrumbs, or maybe you have a handful of corn and you throw it in there. You're throwing it in the water to see if anything comes up and takes the bait. And maybe something does, but you didn't get a clear picture of it. That's basically exactly what this type of phishing email is doing. It's just basically send out scattershot. Whoever opens it up clicks on the link. Well, now we've got a live one, and hopefully they fall for whatever it is. So in this case, it's pretending to be Microsoft. Saying that your password is expired, and that you need to change it. And we'll even send you a handy link to just take care of that problem right now. And if one link isn't good enough, hey, we'll send you 2 links to go to it to change your password. So in this case, the email may look legitimate. However, this is a fake email. It's designed to make it look like it's coming from Microsoft. And again, my recommendation is when you get an email that has any type of embedded links in it, and that's these hyperlinks that send you potentially to another site, never click on those ever in an email. Don't ever do it unless it's something you're just expecting, and I'll explain that later on as we go here. But don't click on those, because what happens in this case here, this is a malicious email. It's a phishing email. You're going to click on these links, and it's going to send you to a website that looks like Microsoft's website. It's going to ask you for your login information, which is your email address usually, and it's going to ask you for your password information. And what's going to happen depends on how savvy the bad guy is. It's going to send up an error message, and it's going to ask you for that information again, and you're going to put it in again. It's going to send another error message, another error message, another error message. You're going to continue to do this, and finally you're just going to give up. Well, again, what's happening is every time you enter that information in there, it's actually recording it and sending it to the bad guy. That website is set up specifically to harvest login information. That's all it's for. It won't work because it's a fake website. It's made to look like Microsoft, and it's just made to steal credential information. Now, what a savvy bad guy will do is they'll let you put your information in there one time on the fake website, and then what they'll do is they will redirect you. Basically, the screen will refresh, and they will send you to the right Microsoft site the second time. And if you're not aware of what they're doing, you won't even realize that the website changed, and now it's at the real Microsoft website. So you put your information in there again, and it will work this time because you're now on the right Microsoft site. And you just will think that you fat fingered your password the first time and not even think twice about it or question it at all. That's the savvy bad guys. So how do you avoid this type of tactic? Well, exactly what I mentioned. And my suggestion is don't ever click on any links that are embedded in any of these emails. So what you need to do is, instead of clicking on these links, if you think this is coming from Microsoft Outlook, what I want you to do is open up a brand new browser, whatever your browser of choice is. I want you to go to the Microsoft site yourself by you typing it in there. And then I want you to log in, because now you're getting to that right website instead of potentially following links that look like it's going to the websites. Even if you're a savvy user and you're saying, oh, well, I can just hover over this and it'll show me where I'm going. Yeah, it will. But I can also craft some JavaScript in this email because this is displaying in HTML. So I can put some code into this email that will change whatever that hover is to whatever I want it to look like. So I can embed code in this email that when you hover over that, even though it's going to not a Microsoft site, it could look like a Microsoft site. And the only way you might know is to look at the actual source of this email from the source code of this email, and then you might be able to see in the code what I'm doing. However, that's usually beyond the technical capabilities of normal day-to-day users. I'm not saying all of them, but you got to go through a lot of work to do that. So my advice is don't click on links unless it's something you're expecting. And again, I'll clarify what that means here shortly. The other thing here, this is another example. So this is basically coming from a bank at this time. Whether you're, in this case, if you're a trusted bank customer, you're getting this email saying, hey, you need to verify a potential withdrawal in another country, or maybe a transaction in another country, whatever. Click here to do so. Again, if you are a trusted bank customer and you get this email, do not click that link. Please open up a brand new browser, go to trustedbank.com yourself by typing it in there. And once you log into the real site, because you typed it in, if this is valid, it will show you somewhere in there in your message system that this is exactly what is need to do. So let's see. I don't remember whose email. It doesn't. Question came in: if you aren't sure if an email is legitimate, is there a safe way to investigate further before opening it? You don't always know everyone who emails you, but that doesn't mean that every new person isn't real. I'm going to show you a couple tactics. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're communicating back and forth with a lot of new users, you're taking it for face value. But again, if that new user is embedding any type of links in their emails or making requests for things, that's a huge red flag. Huge red flag. So that's one thing. And I'll also show you some tactics as well too. We'll get into it here very shortly on how it will make you at least make it more obvious in an phishing attempt if it's somebody internally as well too. So spear phishing is a little more targeted. Spear phishing is usually pretending to be somebody, within your organization trying to trick somebody else. So in this case here, this is a common tactic that someone's pretending to be an internal employee and reaching out to someone in payroll or HR saying, hey, I need you to change my direct deposit information because I've changed banks. Here's my new banking account information. Please change it and make it immediate. So if you blindly follow a request like this and don't have proper procedures in place to verify that this is a legitimate request from the actual employee, you will fall victim for this. And what happens is that bank account, that bank information is set up probably using stolen credentials, stolen identity from somebody else that got breached. It was opened up. And the minute that payroll hits that account is emptied out, closed, and the bad guy is gone with the wind before you or the employee even realizes that they didn't get paid that week. So then what happens is the employee comes back to you saying, hey, I didn't get paid this week. What's going on? And you're like, oh, well, you requested that we change your direct deposit information. And surprise, they did not, because you blindly followed an email. So what do you need to do? Well, first of all, you're going to reimburse that employee because was no fault of their own. It was actually a procedural process that faltered. So, and you're probably pretty much out of luck when it comes to getting that money back, because like I said, that person's gone with the wind usually. So how do you avoid this type of attack? Well, you don't blindly follow these type of requests via email ever. You need to have that person in front of you, physically signing paperwork with a signature. Or in the case, I know there's a lot of remote workers now, so things have changed slightly. So in the remote worker case, you need to have you need to verify that this person made the request via a known good phone number for them that is already on file, not one that may have been transmitted in an email conversation. If you don't have that number, you don't make the change. It's that simple. Because you're going to find yourself in a situation where you send it to a bad person. So you need to make sure you verify at a known good number that should be on file somewhere, whether it's a home number or cell number, whatever, but don't follow a number that is given in an email, because the bad guys will give you those too, saying, oh yeah, well, just give me a call if you have any problems. Here's my number. You know, make sure you're calling the right number, and you can avoid some of this stuff. So. And then we go to whaling. So whaling is going after the big fish or pretending to be a big fish. It's leveraging authority, and it's a tactic that the bad guys also use. So in this case, this is someone that is pretending to be a C-level. In this case, it's CFO, someone pretending to be the CFO. I'm assuming that Sean is somebody that either works underneath him or within the finance department, and they're saying, hey, are you busy? I'm out of the office right now, and I need you to process a wire transfer for me today. Or I need you to go buy me another tactic is I need you to go buy me some Amazon gift cards or eBay gift cards or whatever the gift card flavor of the day is. Let me know when you're free, and I'll send you the details. Again, you should never, ever just blindly follow an email request for any type of financial transaction, ever. You need to verify that the person that is supposedly making this request is truly the person that is making this request. Again, it's a policy and procedural thing that you need to put in place if you don't already have it. Again, you need to verify, is this really Roger? Okay, is Roger really out of the office? Get yourself out of the chair and walk over to his office. If he's sitting in his office, well, you're obviously not out of the office. Did you just ask me to go do this for you? And he'll probably say no. In this case, it's definitely no, because again, this is an example of that. If he happens to be out of the office, because again, everyone posts everything on social media. Or if I happen to be targeting a company, all I got to do is send an email to them, and they're out of office, tells me they're out of office, perhaps. So again, that's more tactics. You know, do you use out of office messages or not? Because if a bad guy is probing you, they'll get that information. But anyways, if they are out of office, again, you need to contact that person via a known cell phone or a known landline, and ask them if they're making this request before you just blindly follow it via an email. Again, it has to be a known number. Don't follow any number that they're giving in here unless you can verify that that's also the one you have on file. That's an easy way to avoid these type of things, and it happens a lot. So one way that will help you in figuring these things out, it's a visual method. So we call this the external notification, email notification. So what happens is anytime an email comes from outside of your organization, it will attach this handy yellow banner right at the top of the message, and informing you that this message is coming from outside your organization. Do not open or click links, and be cautious about it. Why is this important? Well, in this case, in the past two cases, this is someone that's pretending to be an employee, and they're sending it to the HR or payroll department. This is not an internal, this is coming from the outside into your organization, because this is a fake email. This message immediately at the top would have that external banner. Huge red flag for whoever's getting this. Hey, wait a minute. This is someone that's supposedly a coworker, but it's coming from the outside. That's odd. Exactly. It is odd because it's a fake email. It would definitely alert you visually to potential outside attacks coming in, pretending to be internal employees. Huge way of visually telling that. If you see one of these messages come in, and it's supposedly coming from someone, one of your employees, they're either using their personal email or it's made to look like it's an internal employee. That's your only two options, because it's coming from the outside in. If this was a real request from inside, it would not have that banner, because it would just get routed inside of your organization internally. Same thing on the C-level one. If this was truly Roger, in this case it isn't, it would also have that external message on it. And that's, again, it's a quick visual way to determine that, hey, this is coming from the outside. So any of those bad actors that are pretending to be inside people or coworkers, employees, this at least visually alerts you to that. Now, some of our clients, we do have this is pretty common for most of our clients. Some of our clients actually tag the subject line where it puts it external. So again, you have to open the email to see this, whereas if you tag the subject line as external, that gives you that visual thing that not only helps, without opening the email, but it also helps on mobile devices too. Because again, a lot of people use their mobile devices as their main machines, and it's real hard to see emails without opening them up and things like that, where that external could potentially do that. Now, keep in mind, this isn't just targeting bad actor emails. This is targeting every email that is coming in from the outside. But again, this is really handy when it's supposedly coming from someone inside your organization. So again, easy visual way to do it, and highly recommend to use it if you're not. So the bad guys realize that a lot of folks are getting smarter and avoiding a lot of tactics that the bad guys are using. So they're going after something different now. So this is called consent phishing. And what they're doing here is they are doing a situation where they pop up an application. You might be on a site or something, and all of a sudden a window pops up, and it looks much like this over here on the left-hand side that says, "Hey, so the Microsoft application is requesting the following permissions. Do you accept, this request?" I will tell you, if you're one of our clients and you get one of these messages or one of these windows pop up, you need to reach out to our service desk. Don't click on anything. Just pick up the phone and reach out to our service desk, because more than likely, this is probably not a valid request. However, there are certain situations where this could be. Some software applications, if you're installing like a CMS or an ERP or something like that, it may request these and it might be valid. However, we would like to look at it before you interact with it at all. So just reach out to our service desk so we can quickly remote in, take a peek at it, and make a recommendation based off of that. If you're not one of our clients, bring it up to your IT or your existing IT provider, whatever. Because if you click accept here, just blindly click accept here, what you're effectively doing is, this is a malicious app. This is an app designed to basically get access to your Microsoft account. And what this is doing is giving the author of this malicious app complete control over your entire Microsoft ecosystem. And that's everything from email to SharePoint to files to chat to everything. Everything that you are using in Microsoft, you are giving them complete control over. And we'll talk about it here coming up. If you're using multi-factor, this will also bypass multi-factor too. So that is not a saving grace here either. You're basically giving them entire control of your absolute everything in Microsoft. So you don't want to just blindly be clicking on these things. You need to make sure and verify again that this is a valid request. So if you're a client of ours, reach out to us. We'll verify it. If not, you'll have to reach out to your existing internal or external IT provider to verify that, or just hit cancel. That's ultimately another thing too. So, and then we talk about these QR codes. It's called quishing. So basically, what it is you could potentially send one of these. It's like a barcode. It's an encrypted barcode. It's a QR code. You send that to an individual, and the idea is that someone will scan that with their phone. And if you're not careful, I could redirect you to a malicious website where it could do a whole bunch of bad things. Why is that an issue? Well, even scanning over this, you can't see where you're going until you get there. So it's a problem. I know a lot of places use these, especially at restaurants and stuff. They use them for touchless menus with COVID. However, be very, very cautious of what you're doing with these because they could, I'm not saying they're bad, but, a malicious actor could easily use these for malicious purposes, perhaps. So just be aware of that. USB mobile devices and network devices. We touched on some of this, but if USB devices, if you ever happen to find a flash key, those flash devices, the little USB flash drives, and you don't know where that came from for anything, please don't put that in your machine. Hold on to it. And if you're a client of ours, give it to one of our guys when we get there. We will put it in an environment and see what's on it. If you blindly plug that in, if it is something that's malicious, it could install something on your machine without you even realizing it by simply just plugging it in, and it'll allow that person to get into your machine later on down the road. So you got to be very, very cautious of doing that. If you are using those still to transfer, photos, sometimes drawings for architectural firms sometimes use these too. Lawyers sometimes for court cases and documents and things. Make sure you're scanning the device not only on your work machine or wherever it's going to and from. You need to make sure that you're doing virus scans and keep your software up to date. That way, nothing could potentially install itself on that key and hitchhike its way back through and go from there. So we already mentioned about blindly accepting electronic devices that are sent via the mail. Smartwatches, Alexas, wireless. It could be whatever. Any of those devices could potentially be coming from a malicious actor that has backdoors installed on them. So once you plug them into your network, you're now giving that person access without even realizing it. Everyone has a smartphone nowadays, pretty much. And, as much as they're used and their battery effectiveness, they're pretty much battery hogs and need charged on a daily basis, a lot of them. Do not, most of them are USB based. So, you could potentially plug that into your desktop or your laptop. You don't want to do that to charge it. What I want you to do is to plug it into the electrical outlet using the wall brick, because, and we'll talk about more about it, but what happens is when you plug that into your laptop or a computer, while it will charge it, what you may not realize it is also turning it into a USB key. So it could potentially transfer files or steal files off of whatever it's being plugged into. So you need to be aware of that, and a lot of times it's happening and you don't even realize it's happening. So, and that leads me on to, I've been talking a lot about using public charging stations at like hotels, airports, some bookstores, some malls have them. I've been talking about this for a long, long time, and now it's finally hitting the news. So people are starting to realize this is a big issue too. Don't use public charging stations. If your phone is dead or whatever, either bring your wall brick with. They can travel on planes. They're small enough you can shove them in your pocket if you're a man, or put them in a purse or a backpack, whatever. If you're female, and because again, if you're using one of those public charging stations, you're relying on, okay, is this a good public charging station or is it not? If it isn't, what's happening, you're plugging your device in there, and your information could be getting stolen off your phone while you're charging your phone. So basically, that's exactly what the problem is that it could potentially be sucking all of your emails, your photos, your personal information, your contacts, anytime you plug that into a potential public charging station. If it's malicious, it's called juice jacking. So again, carry your wall brick, which is, someone asked, what is a wall brick? It's, if you have your video on, it's this piece right here. It's basically the part that goes into the wall, the electrical part, and your phone cord goes into that and it charges it. So that's the wall brick. It's super small. You can just shove it in your pocket and go from there. So just be aware of that and be vigilant. So that leads us on to passwords. There was already a question about this earlier in the presentation, so now we will get to that answer. We recommend complex and secure passwords. That means they got to be at least 11 characters at minimum. They also need to contain one special character, which is like an ampersand or something like that. $, pound sign should contain at least one uppercase and also at least one number. So why do we recommend that? Because we'll show you here shortly how fast it is to crack a potential password. We're running out of time here, but I'll hurry up here. Online managers. So, when you're using passwords, what happens, how do you store these passwords? Someone did ask, can we use online managers? Sure, you can. I don't recommend them personally because they're huge targets for the bad guys. There's about 5 well-known ones out there. 3 of them have been breached multiple times now, and one of them was actually on the first slide, LastPass. If you're using LastPass, I would recommend not using LastPass. That's the only one I'll say definitely not use. But the other ones, you can use them at your own risk. I don't use them. I don't want somebody else having my passwords. I will keep them in a secure manner on my own way. How do I do that? I can, record them in a way that the entire password isn't recorded. So if someone does happen to come across my password list, it's missing characters. I know what the missing characters are. I also know the position that the missing characters are in. They're going to try what's on that sheet or whatever. Not going to work, not going to work, not going to work. But when I use them, I know I have to, in this case, I peeled off the first 3 characters and the last 1 character, the last character. I know that pattern. I know what the missing characters are. They're all the same on every single password I have listed there. So that's kind of how that can be done. You can also add characters too. That's a little more difficult because you can't use the same added characters. So in this case, you can see here, I've added 2 characters in the beginning and 1 character or 2 characters at the end. Those characters have to be different on each one of the passwords because there's software out there that you can run those through that will tell you if there's padding going on or not. Why are we worried about changing password lengths? Well, in 2022, it took about 34 years to change an 11-digit password that is using all those complexity rules that we mentioned. So it was 34 years. That was in 2022. So our recommendation used to be 10 characters, and that was 5 months. And the reason why is because, if you're changing your password every 3 months, which is the recommendation, by the time this person went through and guessed every single password, it would take them 5 months, but in 3 months, you've already changed it. So they would have to start the process all over again. The reason why we went to 34 years is because now in 2023, you can see an 11-digit password went from 34 years down to 3 years. And that 10 character password went from 5 months to 2 weeks. That's because the hardware that is used to perform this type of calculation is getting so fast that you've got to keep changing the length of your passwords. Otherwise, you're going to get guessed instantaneously. I mean, if you're using a 7-digit password, an 8-digit password, that password, every single possible combination of an 8-digit password can be guessed in under 5 minutes with current hardware. And that was back at the beginning of the year. By mid-year here, we're probably going to be up to at least 12 or 13 probably. And it just constantly keeps changing. So you need to make sure that you're using strong passwords. One last thing is multi-factor. So what is multi-factor? Multi-factor is an additional layer of protection. It does stop. I know this says 80% or 90%. It's more like 85 to 80%, but it's better than nothing. So what it does is it basically asks you, when you log in with your username and password, it usually prompts you for a code that is on your cell phone, or it will send a push notification to you saying, hey, is this you trying to log in? The idea is that the bad guy can't get into your account without that code or without that authorization. So while that is good, the negative side of it is the bad guys realize that a lot of people are using this, and they're using a tactic called MFA fatigue. So what happens is that, and this only works if your credentials are compromised. So if someone does have your username and password because you fell for a fake website or a fake email, and you type that information in there, and all of a sudden you're starting to get all kinds of, hey, is this you trying to log into your Microsoft account? Hey, is this you trying to log into your Microsoft account? Hey, is this you trying to, they keep bombarding your phone with all these requests. The idea is that you're going to finally get frustrated and say, oh, damn it, will you just shut up? I'm sick of it, and hit yes. Guess what? You just let the bad guys in. The only thing that's stopping the bad guys from getting in right now is this MFA that you have on your phone. And if you don't click yes there, they're not going to be able to get in easily. So what we say is, if all of a sudden you start getting, there's push requests to your phone saying, hey, is this you logging in? And you're not like physically logging in at that point in time, then you need to reach out to us and tell us. You need to tell us, one, what account it is or where it's coming from, because your credentials are compromised. Someone has your password and your login information. So we need to change that immediately. The minute we change that, this problem is going to go away and it's going to fix itself. Never blindly just hit accept. And like I said, it's designed to do that you get frustrated and just blindly click it. So with that, obviously we're going to wrap this up quickly here. Don't click on any links within emails. As I mentioned, you always want to verify the person is who they claim to be within an email. If it's financial requests, use strong passwords and MFA. Store your password securely, whether that is with one of those online places or not. That's completely up to you. Make sure you're disabling accounts of any employees that leave on their own or are terminated, and make sure your data is backed up. Hopefully this helps with things and at least gives you an idea. I do apologize it went a little longer. Let me see here. There was another question I think here that I didn't answer. I missed it here. Hold on a second here. It was regards to opening malicious email in itself a bad thing. Why is it? What do hackers get out of that? Well, there's a couple things. So as I mentioned, most of the email clients do a pretty good job of stopping any malicious activities within an email, like if it's hidden in an email. And I can do that because almost everybody is using what's called HTML within their email client. So basically, if I send you an image, a lot of times it will show you that image, or the links will show up with a blue line underneath it to show you it's a link. That means you're using HTML. If you weren't using HTML and you were just using text view, it would actually show all the code that is embedded in that, and people would get really confused. So what it does is basically, if I send you a malicious email, let's say again, think of the pawn thing. I don't know is anyone going to open this or not. What I'll do, I'll send you an email and I'll put a hidden image in it, as I mentioned. And what that image will do is when you open that email, a lot of advertisers and marketing people do this. The minute you open that email, they know you opened it because it's hitting a website with a tracking code that tells me that email was opened. It'll tell me how long you had that email open. It'll tell me a whole bunch of things potentially. Did you visit the website? Did you not visit the website? But the bad guys are using it for malicious purposes, saying someone opened this email, so now I have the ability to send them another email that may have malicious intent that's going to try to send them now to a link. Will they interact with my link or not? So that's kind of the idea behind it. So if I'm just testing the water saying, hey, can I get anybody to even open this email? I'll usually use it with a hidden image. And that image will tell me that somebody opened the email because it's hitting the website. And it has a code with it, a specific code with it that tells me what email it was too. So it links back saying it's this email address. We got a live one. Okay, start sending other emails to this email address and see if we can get them to interact with that. So that's the concept of opening up at least the beginning part of a malicious email. And then, maybe I send you an attachment that has a document in it. Now it has macros that are activated that maybe I can squeak by your antivirus or something. So there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing it, but that's the initial concept behind it. So if you're not opening that email, the bad guy, if you're just visually seeing that email and deleting it, the bad guy will never get that confirmation that it was ever interacted on. And usually you'll end up off of that email list because they're not going to keep sending emails to people that aren't interacting with them. So that kind of answers that question with the opening of the email, malicious email. So I think that is all the other questions. Everything else I think I answered as we went along here. Let me just double check here quick. Yes, that is everything. If you are interested, as I mentioned, there are more specific things on our YouTube account. Their podcasts are about 15 minutes long, 10, 15 minutes long. Just explain some things about social media, sometimes public wireless, a bunch of different tactics. Not only is it good for business use, it's also good for personal use. If you have children, you might want to listen to the Facebook thing because that is important that you're not, potentially giving information about your child away as well. There's a lot of predators out there, unfortunately. So you got to be cautious about that too. So I thank you for your time. I do apologize, went over just a little bit. Hopefully we'll enjoy your lunchtime here, and look forward to seeing you guys again in the future. If you do have any questions, you can reach out to us at info@pcatg.com. I will be happy to get back to you. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.